All right, so I'm connecting the two pieces that I needed to connect for the large deck plate over the fuel tank. So what I've done is I've taken these two pieces together. I have 45'd them, sanded them down to a 45. This is going to get all epoxy together, and then a layer of a 1708 will go over the top of it, and then it'll be glassed on both sides with 2 layers each. Okay, well, I've got the two pieces bonded together using epoxy, 5-to-1, and I've also laid a piece of glass and then glassed a piece over. Fiberglass is about 3 inches wide over the connection, so that should hold it pretty good. Then once I glass it both sides on each side, I'll flip you around here and show you. I went ahead and covered it up with a kind of like made my own pillow and stick, essentially, but this helps it, you know, lay that resin to lay down smooth, and that way I'll just pull this off and be able to lightly sand it, and it should be ready to go. But I've got quite a bit of epoxy in there, so it should be more than enough to really harden it up, to, you know, make it one solid sheet. And then I'm going to come back in, and once I sand this down, I'll put 2 layers of 1708 on each side. That's pretty much all I can do right now with that. I'm just going to let it cure, and then give it probably, you know, overnight, and then come back tomorrow and see what it does. But all right, guys, it's the next day. I've let this board cure overnight. I epoxied the deck plate that's going to go over the fuel tank. Epoxied the two pieces together to make the board roughly 8 feet 8 inches, and I'll flip you around here so you can see it. So I took and screwed this down, and then I forced the other board in here and then braced it off on the back, and used epoxy, a thickened epoxy, and then I came over the top of it with a layer of 1708, and then finished it with 5-to-1 epoxy resin, and then flip it around. So this is the underneath of it. I put the plastic down so that way it would just kind of smooth out and around it, and then fill in, and then I'll have to sand this down, trim it and sand it. But I think it'll work pretty well. It's pretty sturdy. I'm trying to bend this thing. It's pretty sturdy. I think it'll serve me well, especially once I get the 2 layers of 1708 on each side. This is also going to get strips glass in the bottom of it underneath the floor, so that it gets extra support, because this is a really big piece that's going to be one large deck, and this is going to be overbuilt to support not only the console but also the leaning post as well. So it'll be strong when I get done with it. It's going to be like a rock. But all right, here we go. I'm going to get to sanding and then measure out my glass, and we'll go from there. I've got the basically the connection sanded down. I'll flip you around here so you can see it. I think it turned out pretty well. It's pretty smooth. I have to ferret in a little bit, but it still has to get 2 layers of 1708 over the top of it. So, but overall, I think it connected in and blended in very well. Same thing on the other side, even more so probably on the other side. This side doesn't have a layer of 1708, but I'm going to put a couple strips on this first before I lay the other layers down. This is the underside, so this is going to get connected, but it really seamed in really well. Overall, I'm pretty happy with it. I can't complain. That's the first time I ever took two pieces of Coosa board and combined them together. Overall, I think it turned out really well. Decent connection. I used a lot of epoxy, so I think I probably used more than I needed, but I used the P for plenty on this one formula. So all right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and get this cleaned up and go ahead and cut the fiberglass next for both sides, and then try to at least glass one side in. We got that hurricane coming up the coast. Definitely praying for all those that are in Florida right now. All my family in Florida, they're on the east side, and they're getting just some rain and a little bit of wind, about 40 50 miles an hour, so it's not bad for them. But down in South Florida, I think Lee County and Sarasota County, they got tore up pretty good, so definitely keep them in your prayers, and we'll be praying for them as well. All right, we'll try to get back at this. All right, well, I've got my glass cut. I'm going to go ahead and prep this board. I'm going to lightly sand it down. You can see there's kind of like some sticky stuff on it. So I'm going to like sand it down and then wipe it with the Total Boat surface cleaner, and then get it ready to prep for glass. I'm just going to do the first two layers on this side. Well, the two layers on this side, and then the other side will get some more layers, as well as more structural support with some 1/2 inch strips that I'm going to cut, and I'll do all that down the road once I figure out where the tanks are going to lay out. But first, right now, 2 layers of 1708. Okay, well, I got the 2 layers of 1708 down. That was a lot of glassing. This is the biggest piece I've done so far. It's like 8 feet 8 inches, and it's about 28 inches wide for most part. And I'll flip you around here to show you what it looks like. It looks pretty good. Pretty pleased with the way it turned out. This is just the laminating resin. I have to come back and put the finishing resin on it. I'm gonna let it sit for just a minute. Got a good, nice line, real smooth. It actually worked out really well. This is where the 2 pieces were epoxied together. I'm gonna let it sit, and then I'm gonna come back with finishing resin. But overall, it turned out really well. I really can't complain about that. That's a big piece. I used just over a gallon of laminating resin, and I'm probably going to have 16, 28 ounces of finishing resin on top just to really smooth it out and cure it. Battery's about to die, so I'm going to wrap this up. I've got the finishing resin down on top of the deck plate. It turned out really well. Can't complain about that. I'll flip you around here and show you what it looks like. I'm gonna let this cure overnight, and then I'll grind it and sand it tomorrow. I don't know what the weather's gonna look like tomorrow. We got that hurricane coming up. With the hurricane approaching us, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to glass anything tomorrow, but at least this side will be done and cured overnight. And then this pretty much is the last piece that I have to glass. And then I've got those 2 little support tabs right here. These 2 little pieces right here, I've done one side, I've got to do the other side. Those are for the rod holders, and they support the rod holder, locker there that I have. Once I have that done, then pretty much everything on the port side is glassed, and then it just has to be epoxied in. But I'm not going to epoxy it in until I use everything for the port side as a template for the starboard side. And then once everything's cut, and then I have the boat pretty much cut out and ready to go back together, then I'll start glassing and epoxying stuff together. But thank the good Lord, it's coming. It's one piece at a time with this stuff for sure. But we appreciate you watching along and follow along, and hope you enjoyed the videos. Thanks, and have a blessed day.